Every pop star has a beginning, but not every debut album is an instant hit. In this video, we'll look at 10 artists whose debut album flopped. Katy Perry. Before she was a pop icon, Katy Perry was just a teenage girl with a guitar singing Christian rock music under her real name Katy Hudson. Released in 2001, her self-titled debut album was a faith-based album filled with emotional ballads and inspirational themes. Unfortunately, the album didn't go anywhere, and the record label that released it, Red Hill, went bankrupt shortly after, meaning the project received no promotion or distribution. Only about 200 copies were reportedly sold, making it one of the rarest debuts from a major pop star. Despite the commercial failure, Katy didn't give up. She reinvented herself, moving away from Christian music and embracing a mainstream pop rock sound. She changed her name to avoid confusion with actress Kate Hudson and spent years struggling to break into the industry. She was even signed and dropped by multiple labels before finally landing with Capitol Records. Her persistence paid off in 2008 when she released One of the Boys, featuring her first big hit I Kissed a Girl, which became a chart topper. The album turned her into an overnight sensation, and by 2010, Teenage Dream cemented her as one of the biggest pop stars in the world. Today, Katy Hudson is really a forgotten relic of the past, and many people don't even know that's Katy's debut album. Lana Del Rey. Lana Del Rey is one of the most respected and influential alternative pop artists of her generation, but her path to success wasn't really smooth. Before the breakout success of Born to Die, she was just Lizzie Grant, a struggling indie artist trying to make a name for herself. In 2010, she released her debut album Lana Del Rey, aka Lizzie Grant, under an independent label. The album featured early versions of what would become her signature sound, but it lacked the polish of her later work. It didn't gain any traction on the charts, and her label was not able to fund it. With no major promotion and an image that hadn't fully yet formed, the album flopped, selling very few copies. Some speculate that her management pulled it from distribution to give her a fresh start. That fresh start came in 2011 when she rebranded as Lana Del Rey and released Video Games, the hauntingly beautiful song that changed her life. By 2012, she had released Born to Die, which became a commercial smash and became known as the queen of sad girl music. Looking back, her debut feels like a forgotten prototype of what was to come, but it proves that even when your first attempt fails, just keep going. Doja Cat. Doja Cat is now a Grammy-winning superstar, but her first album, Amala, was anything but a success. Released in 2018, the album failed to gain attention, despite a few minor singles like Go to Town and Candy. Commercially, it barely made an impact. Once her career started buzzing, it managed to enter the Billboard 200 at number 138. Many fans today don't even realize that Amala was her debut, as it was largely forgotten until she truly blew up. Her career took a sharp turn in 2018 when she uploaded Moo, a viral joke song about being a cow. The song became a meme, capitalizing on her newfound attention. She dropped Hot Pink in 2019, which had the single Say So, the #1 hit that would catapult her into mainstream fame. Looking back, Amala was a stepping stone that lacked that refined sound or promotion it needed to start off her career right. But thanks to Doja throwing shit at a wall to see what would stick, she flipped the script and became one of the biggest stars of her generation. Sia. Before Sia became one of the most recognizable voices in pop music, she was just another struggling artist trying to find her place. In 1999, she released Only See, an album so obscure that even many of her biggest fans today never heard it. Released under her full name Sia Furler, the album leaned heavily into acid jazz and alternative sounds. It received virtually no promotion and was released on a small Australian label and sold an estimated 1,200 copies, making it a commercial failure. Sia was still experimenting with her sound, and Only See lacked the polished songwriting and powerhouse vocals that she would later become known for. The album was largely forgotten, and it wasn't until years later that people even acknowledged it existed. It didn't help that she wasn't really a mainstream name, and she didn't have the industry backing that could have pushed her to greater heights. Despite this rocky start, Sia refused to give up. She later moved to the UK, where she gained some recognition as a vocalist for the band 07. But it wasn't until she pivoted to songwriting and later reinvented herself as a mysterious pop powerhouse that she truly became a global superstar. Normani. Coming from the successful girl group Fifth Harmony, Normani was seen as the next breakout star that would go on to dominate pop music for years. But after years of false starts, many singles and features, she finally released her debut solo album Dopamine on June 14, 2024. The album was meant to showcase her versatility and establish her as a formidable solo artist, but that didn't quite happen. When it was released, the album flopped on the charts. Despite the positive critical reception, its commercial performance did not meet expectations. In its first week, Dopamine debuted at number 91 on the Billboard 200, selling 12,000 album equivalent units, with only 2,000 being pure sales. This debut was surprising, considering Normani was seen for years as next up to take that Beyonce-Rihanna lane in pop and R&B. The multiple delays leading up to the album's release killed the hype she built for years, as she missed her moment, and her long-awaited debut album has already been forgotten. Nicole Scherzinger. Nicole Scherzinger was supposed to be a breakout star, coming off the huge success she had with the Pussycat Dolls. She had everything: a powerful voice, great looks, and natural stage presence. It was obvious she was the leader of the group and that a solo career was inevitable. However, when her debut album Killer Love finally arrived in 2011, it failed to make the impact everyone expected. Despite being packed with catchy pop tracks, the album was largely ignored in the US and struggled to establish her as a successful solo act. One of the biggest issues was the album rollout. Her solo career had already been delayed for years, as her debut album was supposed to be Her Name is Nicole, but it was scrapped entirely after multiple false starts. When Killer Love was finally released, it didn't even get a proper US launch, instead being pushed mainly in Europe. It managed to do well in the UK though. The failure of the album effectively derailed Nicole's chances of becoming a solo megastar. While she found some success on TV as a judge on multiple reality competition shows, she never managed to establish herself as a dominant force in pop music. Charli XCX. Charli XCX is now considered one of the most innovative forces in pop music. However, her 2013 debut album True Romance was anything but a commercial breakthrough. Despite being critically acclaimed, the album failed to chart on the Billboard 200 and peaked at a disappointing number 85 in the UK. The singles, including You and What I Like, received little mainstream radio play, and the album sold poorly. Part of the problem was timing. Charli had already started making waves in the underground music scene, but her label struggled to position her for mainstream success. Of course, things changed drastically when she was featured on the huge hit I Love It with Icona Pop that same year. She then went on to find mainstream success with Boom Clap and Fancy with Iggy Azalea, proving that she had the potential to dominate the charts. Over the years, she embraced a more experimental sound, cementing her place as a pop visionary. In 2024, she released Brat, which made her a huge star in pop music after more than a decade of grinding in the underground. Sabrina Carpenter. Before Sabrina Carpenter became the breakout star of 2024, she struggled to make an impact for years, and her debut album Eyes Wide Open came out back in 2015. Released under Hollywood Records, an affiliate of Disney, the album didn't match the smooth pop sound she would be known for. Commercially, it made a dent, peaking at number 43 on the Billboard 200, but failed to produce any major hits. The lead single Will Be Stars was a sweet but forgettable ballad that lacked the energy needed to make waves on pop radio. Unlike fellow Disney stars like Selena Gomez and Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina didn't immediately break through to the mainstream, and the album was largely overlooked outside of the Disney fanbase. Sabrina's real breakthrough came much later, with Singular Act 1 in 2018, and especially Emails I Can't Send in 2022, which saw her lean into a more mature, witty, and confident persona. Songs like Nonsense and Feather went viral, and by 2024, Espresso solidified her as a true pop star. Looking back, Eyes Wide Open feels like a stepping stone rather than a defining moment in her career. Rae Jepsen. It's almost hard to imagine a world where Rae Jepsen wasn't the Call Me Maybe girl, but before she became a viral sensation, she released a debut album that barely made a splash. In 2008, she dropped Tug of War, a folk pop record that was the start of her career. Despite a couple of minor hits in Canada, it was largely ignored outside of her home country and failed to chart in the US. Had she continued down that path, Carly might have remained a niche artist in Canada. But everything changed in 2012 when Call Me Maybe exploded. because of a viral video, and it made her a global phenomenon overnight. Since then, Carly has become a critical darling, with albums like Emotion and Dedicated, proving that she was not just a one-hit wonder. But Tug of War remains the forgotten debut before she found her true voice in pop music. Bebe Rexha. Bebe Rexha had been grinding behind the scenes for years. Before releasing her debut album Expectations in 2018, she had songwriting credits on major hits like Eminem and Rihanna's The Monster, and had gained attention through her own singles and collaborations, including Me, Myself and I with G-Eazy, and her multiple David Guetta collaborations. With a growing reputation as a hitmaker, it seemed like her debut album would solidify her as a major pop star. However, despite featuring the massive crossover hit Meant to Be, which dominated the Billboard Hot 100 and broke records on country radio, the album failed to live up to expectations, which was ironic because the album was called Expectations. The album peaked at number 13 on the Billboard 200, which was decent, but far from the dominance expected from an artist who was being hyped up for years. Despite this lukewarm debut, Bebe continued pushing forward, and while she never quite became an A-list pop star, she carved out a niche for herself in the industry. She is more of a singles artist. She has had huge hits, but no notable albums that stood the test of time. Ultimately, her career will be defined by her hits, not really her albums, proving that a disappointing debut album doesn't really mean the end of the road. Which artist whose debut album flopped did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.